The night was heavy with snow. The wind howled through the trees and silence filled the frozen valley. Inside the small wooden cabin, a lone human sat by the dim fire. His name was Daniel. He was used to the quiet nights, used to the loneliness that stretched across the mountains. But tonight something felt different, a strange unease in the air. Daniel had lived alone for many years, far from the crowded cities. He liked it that way. No one came to his door, no one disturbed him, and he had learned to accept the emptiness. But as the fire crackled low, he suddenly heard something he never expected. A sound, soft but sharp against the storm. A knock. 3 times, faint. Desperate, Daniel froze. At this hour, in this weather, who could it be? He thought it was the wind at first. But then the knock came again, louder this time, heart beating faster. Daniel rose to his feet. He grabbed the old lantern from the table and walked slowly to the door. His boots scraped the wooden floor, his breath thick in the cold air. His hand touched the metal handle, and for a moment he hesitated. No one should be here, not in this storm. When he pulled the door open, the wind slammed into him, carrying snowflakes that stung his face. But what froze him was not the cold. It was the sight standing at his door, a figure, thin and trembling, wrapped in torn cloth. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light of the lantern, not like any human's. Her eyes, wide and glowing faint blue, stared at him with pain and fear. In her arms, she clutched a small bundle, and from that bundle came the weak cry of a baby. For a moment Daniel could not breathe. An alien here at his doorstep. He had heard stories about them, some good, some bad. He never expected to see one, let alone a mother with a baby. The alien woman's lips moved. Her voice cracked, weak, and heavy with exhaustion. She whispered only one word: "Please." Then her knees buckled, her body tilted forward, and she nearly fell into the snow. Daniel reached out instinctively, catching her before she hit the ground. The baby's cry grew louder, thin but sharp in the night. The woman was shaking, her skin ice cold. Her clothes were soaked through. She had been walking in the storm for hours, maybe days. Daniel stood in the doorway, holding a half-conscious alien mother and her starving child. His mind raced. Should he help them? Should he turn them away? What if patrols came searching? What if she brought danger to his quiet life? But then the baby cried again, its tiny voice piercing through his hesitation. Daniel looked down at the child's face, so fragile, so helpless. The little one reached out with small fingers, curling them weakly around his hand. Something in his chest tightened without another thought. Daniel pulled them both inside, kicking the door shut behind him. He laid the mother gently on the rug near the fire. She was barely breathing, her chest rising and falling with painful effort. The baby squirmed in her arms, hungry and cold. Daniel hurried to grab a blanket, wrapping it around the small bundle. He placed the baby near the fire and then checked on the woman. Her skin had strange scars, marks burned into her arms. Some looked old, some fresh. He did not know what they meant, but they made his stomach turn. "Stay awake," he muttered, not even sure if she understood his words. "Don't give up." The woman's eyes fluttered. She tried to speak, but her voice broke into a whisper, only fragments. Hungry, child, safe. Then she fell unconscious. The baby whimpered louder. Daniel looked around his cabin searching. He had no formula, no alien food, but he did have milk. He quickly poured some into a small cup, dipping a piece of cloth into it. He pressed it gently. To the baby's lips, the child sucked weakly. Desperate for every drop, Daniel's hands trembled. His mind was chaos. How had this happened? Why was an alien mother at his door in the dead of night? What had driven her to risk the storm? What was she running from? The fire cracked. Shadows stretched across the cabin walls. Outside, the wind howled like a warning. Daniel sat close to the baby and the unconscious mother, torn between fear and compassion. He could send them away, but his heart whispered otherwise as he fed the tiny child. The baby's glowing eyes blinked open, staring at him with quiet trust. It was a look Daniel had not seen in years, a look that broke through his walls of solitude. And then, as the cabin grew still again, he heard something in the distance. The faint hum of engines cutting through the storm, his chest tightened. Whoever had driven this woman into the snow might already be coming. But for now, all Daniel could do was hold the child close, watch over the stranger on his floor, and listen to the storm that carried more than just snow. The knock at midnight had changed everything. The storm outside raged like a beast, shaking the cabin walls, but inside Daniel's world had already changed. He sat near the fire, his eyes moving between the small alien child wrapped in his blanket and the unconscious woman lying on his floor. The flames painted their faces with a soft orange glow, yet both looked pale, fragile, and close to breaking. Daniel was no stranger to hardship. He had fought hunger, loneliness, and bitter cold before, but this was different. These were not his problems. These were strangers, yet their presence stirred something in him that he thought was long dead. The baby stirred again. Letting out a thin cry, Daniel leaned forward quickly. He dipped the cloth in milk once more and pressed it to the child's lips. The little one drank eagerly, tiny hands grabbing at his fingers. As the baby's glowing eyes met his, Daniel felt his heart sink deeper. This was no simple act of charity. He was already tied to them. His gaze shifted to the alien woman. Her breathing was shallow, her chest rising slowly with effort. The scars on her arms told a story he could not yet understand. Some looked like burns, others like cuts. All were deliberate. Daniel clenched his jaw. What kind of people would mark a woman like this? He reached out carefully and checked her pulse. It was weak, but steady. Her skin was ice cold. She needed warmth, food, and rest. Daniel covered her with his thickest blanket, yet he knew it would not be enough. Hours passed, the storm outside refused to die. Daniel sat in silence, every crack of the wood and howl of the wind sharpening his thoughts. He thought about leaving her there, thought about how simple it would be to pretend none of this had happened. But every time he looked at the baby, he knew that choice was impossible. At last the woman stirred, her eyes opened slowly. Glowing faint blue under the firelight, she looked confused at first, then afraid. Her hand shot out, searching for the baby. When she saw the child wrapped safely in the blanket, a small breath of relief escaped her lips. "You're safe," Daniel said quietly, not sure if she understood. He gestured to the baby. "The child is fine." The woman blinked, her lips moving. Her words came in fragments, broken and heavy with exhaustion. "Thank you, human." Her voice cracked. She tried to sit up, but her strength failed. Daniel steadied her gently. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Only the storm filled the cabin. Then Daniel asked the question burning in his chest. "Why my door? Why risk the storm? Why here?" Her eyes glistened, shadows of pain swimming in them. She struggled to speak. No choice. Chased. Child not safe. "Please." She swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "Wanted to leave her." "But you opened door?" Daniel stared at her. The weight of her words pressed down on him. She had come to give up her child, ready to die in the snow if it meant the baby might live. That kind of desperation was beyond anything he had known. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. His quiet life had just been broken open. If someone was chasing her, they would not stop. His cabin was no longer safe. His world was no longer simple. The baby whimpered again. The woman reached out weakly, her hands trembling as she touched the child's cheek. Her scars caught the firelight. Daniel saw fresh burns shaped like brands. He swallowed hard, anger rising in his chest. Whoever did this had treated her like property, not a person. "You can't stay long," Daniel muttered, half to himself. "If they're after you, they'll come here." The woman's eyes widened, fear and sorrow mixing together. She whispered, "Please, just a little time. He needs to live." Her gaze fell on the baby, glowing eyes soft and full of love. "If they take us back, he will not survive." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had lived alone for years, and for years he told himself that solitude was enough. But now, looking at the baby's tiny fingers and the mother's pleading eyes, he realized he was standing at a crossroad. The storm continued outside, thunder rumbling like distant footsteps. Daniel rose and checked the window. In the far distance, through the blur of snow, he thought he saw faint lights moving across the valley. Engines, patrols, maybe hunters. They were searching and they were not far. He stepped back, his heart pounding. The woman noticed his tension. Her voice cracked again. "They are coming." Daniel clenched his fists. He had wanted a quiet night, nothing more. Instead, fate had left a helpless mother and child on his doorstep, chased by shadows he did not yet understand. He did not know if he could fight what was coming, but he knew one thing: he could not hand them over. The baby cooed softly, curling against the blanket. The woman closed her eyes, whispering words Daniel barely caught. "Thank you for not leaving." Daniel sat down heavily near the fire, staring into the flames. His decision had already been made the moment he opened the door. He would protect them, for better or worse. His cabin was no longer just his. It was their shelter, at least for tonight. But as the storm thinned for the first time, the distant hum of engines grew louder, cutting through the silence like a knife. Daniel's jaw tightened. His quiet life had ended. The battle for survival had just begun. The fire inside the cabin still burned, but Daniel's heart was restless. He stood at the window, staring into the storm. The faint glow of lights flickered in the distance, weaving slowly across the white valley. They were not the lights of travelers. No, they moved in patterns. Too careful, too sharp. Patrols. Behind him, the alien woman shifted weakly under the blanket, clutching her child close. Her eyes opened, glowing faint blue in the dim light. She followed Daniel's gaze to the window, and her lips trembled. "They are searching," she whispered, her voice thin with fear. Daniel clenched his jaw. He had guessed it already, but hearing her words made the truth heavier. Whoever they were, they had tracked her this far, and they would not stop until they had her back. He turned from the window and began pacing, his mind racing with options, none of them good. The baby stirred. Letting out a small cry, Daniel flinched. Every sound seemed louder in the silence of the storm. He bent quickly, gently rocking the child to quiet it. "Not now, little one," he muttered. His hands shook as he felt the fragile weight against him. The baby calmed, but the danger had only grown. The woman tried to sit up, pain flickering across her face. "If they hear him," she stopped, her breath shallow. Her eyes wide with helplessness, Daniel placed the child back in her arms. His voice was low but firm. "I'll handle it." A thud echoed outside, heavy boots crunching in the snow. Daniel's heart jumped. He grabbed his lantern and motioned for silence. He moved to the door, pressing his ear against the wood. The wind carried voices, rough and cold. "Tracks lead this way," one voice growled. "Search the cabin." Daniel's pulse thundered. He glanced back at the mother. Her body stiffened. Holding her child tighter, her scars seemed to burn in the firelight as if they remembered the chains she had fled. Daniel raised a hand, signaling her to stay hidden. The door rattled with a sudden knock, sharp and commanding. "Open up," a voice barked. Daniel took a deep breath. His cabin had always been a place of peace. Now it felt like a trap. He unlocked the door slowly, letting the storm rush in. 3 figures stood outside, armored and armed, their faces hidden beneath cold helmets. Their glowing visors scanned the cabin with mechanical precision. "We're looking for an escaped slave," one said, his tone flat. "A female with a child. Have you seen them?" Daniel forced his face to stay calm, his voice steady though his heart pounded. "No one has come here," he replied. "Only me." The patrol leader stepped forward, his visor glowing brighter. "We tracked Prince. Here." His gaze swept past Daniel into the cabin, resting on the fire. "You live alone." Daniel nodded. "Always have." His hand gripped the doorframe tightly, fighting the urge to look back toward the cellar hatch beneath the rug. He had moved the woman and child there moments before the knock, hiding them in the dark. The soldier's boots scraped the threshold. "Mind if we look around?" It was not a question. Daniel's jaw tightened. He stepped into the doorway, blocking the view. "Storm is bad. You'll bring snow and ice inside. Nothing here but firewood and an old man's bones." His words came out sharp, more defiant than he intended. The soldier tilted his head, silence stretched. Daniel felt the weight of their gaze like knives pressing against his skin. The baby below stirred, letting out a faint sound. Barely. A whimper. Daniel's chest froze, his breath caught. The soldier paused, visor flickering as if scanning. Then another patrolman muttered, "The storm will bury the track soon. We waste time here." The leader grunted, stepped back and motioned to his men. "We move." Relief washed over Daniel as the figures turned into the storm. Their glowing lights faded slowly into the white darkness. He closed the door, bolting it quickly. His legs trembled beneath him. He leaned against the wall, struggling to catch his breath. He hurried to the cellar and pulled the hatch open. The alien woman looked up at him, her eyes wet with terror. The baby clutched to her chest. Daniel helped them out, whispering, "They're gone. For now." The woman's voice cracked. "They will return." Her fear was not just for herself, but for the small life in her arms. They never stop. They never forgive. Daniel stared at her. The reality hit him harder than before. This was not a one-night problem. The patrols would search again, wider, deeper, until they found what they wanted. His cabin was no longer safe. His life was no longer his. The fire snapped, sending sparks into the air. Daniel looked at the baby, who blinked at him with glowing eyes, tiny fingers stretching toward his hand. Something inside him shifted. He had lived too long in silence, too long in shadows, but now, for the first time in years, he had something worth fighting for. He turned to the woman, his voice firm. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." She stared at him, shocked, as if she had never heard such words before. Slowly, tears welled in her glowing eyes. She whispered, Why would you do this?" Daniel glanced at the child again, then at her scars. He spoke quietly. "Because no one deserves to be hunted like an animal, and because he," his finger pointed at the baby, "deserves a chance." Outside, the storm began to ease, but the danger had only grown. In the distance, faint lights glowed again, stronger this time. The chase was far from over, and Daniel knew the night was only the beginning. The storm finally broke at dawn, but the silence it left behind was even heavier. Snow covered the cabin roof, the valley buried under white, and the tracks of the patrols already lost beneath the frost. Yet Daniel felt no peace. He sat by the fire, his rifle resting across his knees, eyes sharp, waiting for another knock that might bring more trouble. The alien woman stirred on the rug, her baby safe in her arms. Her face was pale, but her breathing had grown stronger through the night. Slowly, she lifted her gaze toward Daniel. There was fear still in her eyes, but also something else, a question, a weight she had carried too long. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice soft and broken. "But you do not understand what hunts me?" Daniel leaned forward, his rough hands tightening around the rifle. "Then tell me," he said. "Tell me why they want you back. Tell me why you knocked on my door in the middle of the storm." For a long moment she hesitated, as if the truth itself might shatter the fragile safety of the cabin. Then she looked at her child, pressed her lips against his forehead, and began to speak. "My people," she said slowly, "were once free. We built villages, sang songs, and raised our children without fear. But then the patrols came, not to protect but to claim. They call it service, but it is slavery. They take the strong to work, the weak to die, and children." Her voice broke, tears shimmering in her glowing eyes. "Children are taken before they can even walk." Daniel's stomach turned. The scars on her arms, the fear in her voice, all of it painted a picture he wished he had not seen. "And you?" he asked, his voice low. "You were taken." She nodded, pulling the blanket tighter around her. I was marked as property, she whispered, showing him the burns across her skin. I carried heavy stones. I dug trenches. I did what they demanded. But when I gave birth to him, I knew he would not live there. They do not allow mothers to keep their young. He would have been sold, traded, or thrown away, so I ran. The baby stirred, letting out a small cry. She rocked him gently, her glowing eyes burning with fierce love. I ran into the storm. I carried him until my body gave up. I had no plan, no hope, only the will to keep him alive. That is when I found your cabin. Daniel sat in silence, his fists clenched. He had heard rumors of camps, whispered tales, from traders who passed through the valley, but he had never seen proof. Now the proof was lying on his rug, scars carved into her flesh, fear carved into her soul. You risked everything for him, Daniel said quietly, more to himself than to her. He looked at the child, small and fragile but alive. And now they'll never stop chasing you. Her eyes filled with sorrow. Yes, they will not stop until I am dragged back, until he is taken from me. She lowered her head, her voice trembling. If I die, they will not care. But if they take him, they will destroy him. The fire cracked. Daniel stared into the flames. His life had been simple before, a quiet routine in the mountains. But now he knew he could not return to that life. Not after hearing her story. Not after holding the baby who looked at him with such trust. He turned to her, his voice steady. Then I'll protect you, both of you. The woman blinked, stunned. Why? She asked. You owe me nothing. I am not of your kind. Daniel shook his head. Doesn't matter. You knocked on my door, you asked for help, and I won't turn you away, not now. Her tears fell freely. She whispered something in her own tongue, words Daniel could not understand, but he felt the meaning, gratitude so deep it pierced through the air. But the moment of quiet did not last. A sound broke it. The faint hum of engines returning. Closer this time. Daniel rose to his feet instantly. Moving to the window, he saw faint lights through the trees. The patrols had widened their search. They were coming back. The woman's face went pale. They have found us, she whispered, clutching her baby tightly. Daniel turned, his eyes hard. Then we move, he said. Staying here means death. He began gathering what little he had. Bread, water, blankets. Bullets for his rifle, every second counted. The cabin that had been his home was no longer safe. It was a trap waiting to be closed. The woman tried to rise, her body weak, but her will unbroken. Daniel helped her to her feet, steadying her with one arm while she clutched her child with the other. He could feel her trembling, not from the cold but from the weight of the choice. She looked at him, her voice shaking. If you stay with us, they will hunt you too. You will lose everything. Daniel gave a bitter smile. I already lost everything a long time ago, he said. Now I finally have something worth protecting. The baby whimpered. Daniel looked down, his hand brushing the child's tiny head. He felt a fire inside him, not the fire of the hearth, but the fire of purpose. The woman's secret was no longer just hers. It was his burden too. Outside, the snow was already beginning to glow with the approaching lights. The patrols were closing in. The secrets revealed in the firelight had changed everything. Daniel knew what he had to do. The chase was not over. It was only just beginning. The night was quiet for only a heartbeat. Then came the sound, low at first, then growing louder. The hum of engines, the crunch of boots in the snow, the metallic clatter of weapons. The patrols had returned, and this time they were not passing by. They were coming straight for the cabin. Daniel's chest tightened. He moved quickly, grabbing the last of his supplies and shoving them into a sack. His rifle leaned against the wall, ready. The alien woman clutched her child close, her glowing eyes wide with dread. They are here, she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel glanced at her. Downstairs now, he ordered, pulling back the rug and opening the cellar hatch. She hesitated, clutching her baby tighter, but the sound of boots outside gave her no choice. She slipped into the dark cellar. Daniel lowered the hatch and covered it once more, pressing the rug flat. He could still hear the baby whimper faintly. He prayed the soldiers would not. A sharp knock thundered against the wooden door. "Open up," a voice barked, louder than before. "This is an inspection." Daniel's hands tightened on his rifle. His mind raced. He could shoot, but that would bring more. He could refuse, but they would force their way in. He forced himself to breathe slowly. He needed to buy time. Every second counted. The knock came again, harder. "Open the door, human." Daniel set the rifle down within reach, then unlatched the door. The storm wind rushed in, carrying snowflakes and the sharp scent of iron. 3 soldiers stood there, their visors glowing, weapons gleaming in the firelight. Behind them, more shapes moved in the trees. They had come in numbers this time. The leader stepped forward, visor scanning the cabin. "We know she came this way," he said, his voice mechanical, cold. "A female and her offspring, where are they?" Daniel stood firm in the doorway, his voice steady though his heart thundered. "I told you last night. No one has been here but me." The soldier tilted his head, visor pulsing. "Your words do not match our scans. Heat signatures inside more than one explain." Daniel's blood ran cold. He had forgotten. Their machines could read heat. He forced a bitter laugh. "Rats," he said. "The cellar is full of them. Big ones. Fire drives them to the surface. I've been trying to starve them out." The soldier's visor flickered, unreadable. He stepped inside, the others following. Daniel moved aside, his fists clenched. His eyes darted to the rug covering the hatch. His heart hammered as one soldier's boots came dangerously close. The leader scanned the room, his visor pausing at the fire, the table, the blankets. Finally, his gaze settled on a small object half hidden near the hearth. Daniel's stomach dropped. It was the baby's toy, a carved piece of wood he had not noticed before. The soldier bent down, lifting it slowly. He turned it over in his metal glove. "This is not human-made," he said flatly. His visor turned back to Daniel. "Explain this." Daniel's mind raced, his throat felt dry. He forced his voice calm. "Traders pass through sometimes, leave junk behind. I use scraps for kindling. You think I carved that? Look closer. It's useless." The soldier stared at him for a long moment. The silence heavy. Then the baby whimpered faintly below, muffled by the cellar. Daniel froze, sweat sliding down his temple. He prayed the storm outside would mask the sound. The soldier straightened, visor glowing brighter. "Search the place," he ordered. 2 of the soldiers began to move, one toward the back room, the other toward the rug. Daniel's heart slammed. If they opened the hatch, it was over. He stepped forward quickly, blocking their path. His hand rested casually on the rifle by the wall. His voice came sharp. "You've already wasted enough time. Storm will cover your tracks soon. If she was here, she's long gone. You want to explain to your commander why you froze chasing shadows?" The soldiers paused, the tension thick. The leader's visor flickered again, measuring Daniel's words. At last he raised a hand, stopping his men. "Enough," he said. "We will return. If you shelter her, human, your life is forfeit." Daniel held his ground, not moving, not speaking as they stepped out into the storm again. The door shut with a heavy slam, leaving only the sound of the wind. He stayed frozen for several seconds, listening, waiting. Only when the glow of their visors faded into the snow did he move. He dropped to the rug, pulling it back. He opened the hatch and the alien woman's frightened eyes looked up at him. The baby clutched tight against her chest. "They're gone," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "For now." She climbed out, trembling, her tears glistening in the firelight. "They will come again," she said. "They never stop." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready." He looked around his cabin, his once quiet home now a battlefield. He knew it could not last. The cabin would fall sooner or later, but as long as the mother and child lived, he would stand. The baby stretched a tiny hand toward him, fingers curling around his thumb. Daniel's chest tightened. In that fragile grip, he felt both burden and purpose. He whispered to himself, "If they want you, they'll have to take me first." Outside, the patrols regrouped in the valley, their lights moving like predators in the dark. The siege had only begun. The cabin was no longer safe. Daniel knew it with every breath he took. The patrols would return, and next time they would not leave without tearing the place apart. He looked at the alien mother and her child, their faces pale in the firelight, and he made his choice. "We leave tonight," he said firmly, his voice low. "Before the storm clears, if we wait, they'll surround us." The woman's glowing eyes widened, fear and exhaustion mixing together. "In the snow," she whispered. "With a baby. We will not survive." Daniel shook his head. "Stay, and we die anyway. Out there we at least have a chance." He began gathering what little he had, bread wrapped in cloth, a flask of water, a lantern, and his rifle. Every second mattered. He helped her to her feet. She leaned heavily against him. Her child pressed tight against her chest. Daniel pulled his thick coat around her shoulders and wrapped the baby tighter in blankets. The small bundle gave a weak cry, and Daniel froze, his eyes darting to the window. The night was alive with distant lights, patrols moving like predators across the snow. He pushed open the back door, the storm rushing in cold and sharp. The world outside was white and endless, the moonlight casting long shadows. Daniel pulled the woman close, guiding her into the snow-covered trail that led away from the valley. Their steps were heavy, each crunch of snow sounding like a warning. The wind howled, carrying with it the cries of distant wolves. Daniel's grip on his rifle tightened. His eyes never stopped moving, searching the trees, the ridges, the darkness that could hide enemies. The woman stumbled, her strength fading, but she kept walking, driven only by the child in her arms. Minutes felt like hours. The snow thickened, blinding them. Daniel stopped often to brush away their tracks with broken branches. He knew the storm might hide them. But the patrols had machines that could cut through snow and silence alike. The baby cried again, louder this time. The sound pierced the night. Daniel's chest tightened. He turned quickly, pulling the mother and child into the cover of thick pines. He knelt in the snow, whispering, "Shh, little one, please." His rough hand brushed the baby's small head, his voice soft, though fear burned in him. The child slowly quieted, but the danger did not. Through the trees, Daniel saw lights moving closer, beams cutting across the snow, patrols, searching, their engines humming, their visors glowing. He motioned for silence, his breath misted in the freezing air. He pressed his back to a tree, pulling the mother down beside him. The soldiers passed not far from them, their boots crunching in rhythm, their voices carried through the wind. She cannot have gone far, spread out. Daniel's hand gripped his rifle, every muscle tense. He was ready to fight if they were discovered, but the storm gave them cover, the snow swallowing their trail. The patrols moved past, their lights fading. For now they were safe. When the last hum of engines faded into the night, Daniel exhaled. His chest ached from holding his breath. He turned to the woman, her face streaked with tears. "We keep moving," he said. She nodded weakly, and together they rose. The path grew steeper as they climbed toward the ridge. The snow was deep, pulling at their legs. The woman stumbled again, nearly falling. Daniel caught her, pulling her close. "I've got you," he muttered. She whispered back, "Why do you help us?" Her voice was soft, almost lost in the storm. Daniel looked at her, his breath heavy. "Because no one else would," he said simply. His eyes dropped to the baby, glowing eyes peering from the blankets. "And he deserves to live." They pressed on, step after painful step, until at last, they reached a narrow cave in the ridge. Daniel pushed them inside. The wind howled outside, but the cave gave shelter. He lit the lantern, its glow revealing jagged stone walls and a floor of frozen earth. It was not much, but it was better than open snow. The woman sank to the ground. Clutching her child, Daniel knelt beside her, sharing the last of the bread and water. She ate slowly, feeding the baby first. Daniel watched in silence, his chest heavy with anger at the scars that marred her skin, the cruelty that had forced her here. For a brief moment there was peace. The baby slept, the woman's breathing steadied. But Daniel did not rest. He sat at the cave's mouth, rifle across his knees, watching the storm outside. He knew this was not the end, only a pause. In the distance, faint light still moved across the valley. Patrols spreading wider, hunting deeper. The storm could not hide them forever. The woman's voice broke the silence, soft and weary. If they catch us, you must leave me. Save the child, not me. Daniel turned sharply, his eyes hard. Don't ask me that, he said. I don't leave anyone behind. Her glowing eyes filled with tears, she whispered, Then you are not like the others, you are different. Daniel looked out into the storm, his grip on the rifle tightening. He did not feel different. He only felt tired, angry, and ready to fight if it came to that, ready to give up everything he had left. The snowstorm roared, covering the valley, hiding both hunter and hunted inside the cave. 3 lives rested in fragile safety, bound together by chance and choice. But outside, the lights of the patrols burned brighter, creeping closer with every passing hour. The flight through the snow was not over. It had only begun. The storm faded slowly. The night sky cleared, and pale light from the rising sun touched the snow-covered valley. Daniel sat at the mouth of the cave, rifle in his lap, his breath rising in cold clouds. His eyes were sharp, searching the horizon for movement. He had not slept. He dared not. Behind him, the alien mother slept lightly, her child nestled against her chest. Even in sleep, she held the baby as if the world would tear him away at any moment. Daniel looked back at them, the soft glow of their eyes dim under the lantern light, and felt a weight in his chest. A strange warmth, too. One he had not known in years. But peace never lasted long. In the distance, faint lights flickered again. Patrols moving through the valley like wolves. Their search had not ended. Daniel's jaw tightened. They would not stop until the mother and child were dragged back in chains. He turned to the woman as she stirred awake. Her eyes widened as she saw the lights through the snow. Fear returned instantly. They are coming, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Yes, but not for long. His voice was steady, though fire burned inside him. He rose to his feet, checking the rifle, counting the bullets. He had only a few left, not enough for a war. But he knew he could not run forever. Somewhere beyond the ridge lay old paths, trails leading to the hidden settlement of outlanders, a place where patrols had no control. If they could reach it, the mother and child might be safe. We move again, Daniel said firmly. The woman's lips trembled. You will die if you fight them all, she whispered. Daniel gave a grim smile. Then I'll make sure you live first. They left the cave, moving slowly through the thinning snow. The valley stretched wide, painted silver by the morning light. The woman stumbled often, but Daniel steadied her, never letting her fall. The baby whimpered softly, the sound barely carried on the wind. The patrols drew closer, their engines humming. Daniel led them along the ridge, ducking behind. Rocks sliding through narrow passes, every step was dangerous, every shadow could betray them. His heart pounded, yet his focus never wavered. At last they reached a frozen stream, its surface cracked and uneven. Daniel motioned for silence. Follow close, he whispered, guiding them across. The ice groaned under their weight, threatening to break. The woman clutched her child tightly, eyes wide with terror, but they crossed step by step until they reached the far side. Behind them, the sound of engines grew louder. Daniel spun, raising his rifle. Patrol lights cut through the snow, visors glowing like fire. Keep moving, he told her. She hesitated, but his fierce look gave her strength. She turned, clutching her baby, and hurried ahead. The patrols spotted them. Shouts echoed across the valley, beams of light slicing through the snow. Daniel fired once, the rifle's crack echoing like thunder. One visor shattered, a soldier fell. The others spread out, weapons raised. Daniel fired again, his aim sharp, his body steady, but the bullets were few. He hit another, then ducked behind a rock as shots sparked against stone. Snow burst into the air, the world filled with chaos. The woman cried out, shielding her baby. Daniel shouted, "Go, don't stop, run!" His last bullet fired and silence followed. He dropped the empty rifle, his chest heaving. The patrols advanced slowly, cautious. Their visors glowed brighter as they closed in. Daniel clenched his fists, ready to fight bare-handed if he had to. But then, something unexpected happened. From the far ridge, horns echoed, deep and haunting. Shadows moved through the trees. Not soldiers, but men and women in ragged cloaks, outlanders, hunters of the mountains. They appeared with bows, blades, and old rifles surrounding the patrols. The soldiers turned, caught between enemies. The outlanders fired, arrows and bullets cutting through the snow. The patrols fell back, retreating into the valley, their lights fading until the storm swallowed them whole. Daniel stood frozen, breathless. The outlanders lowered their weapons. Their leader, an old scarred man, stepped forward. His eyes rested on the alien mother and her child, then on Daniel. "You brought them here," he said, his voice rough. Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "They need safety. Can you give it?" The man studied them for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "With us, they will be free." The woman fell to her knees, tears streaming. She whispered words Daniel did not understand, but he knew their meaning. Gratitude, hope, relief. Daniel helped her to her feet, guiding her toward the outlanders as the sun climbed higher. Painting, gold across the snow, Daniel walked beside them. His cabin was gone, his solitude shattered, but he did not look back. Ahead lay a future uncertain, but alive. The baby stirred, reaching out from the blanket. His tiny hand caught Daniel's finger. The woman smiled through her tears. "He trusts you," she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time in years, he felt not empty but whole. He looked at the mother and child, then at the path ahead. His voice was soft but firm. "From now on, you're not alone. Your family." The valley behind them lay cold and silent, but in their steps forward was warmth, purpose, and the fragile spark of something new. A new dawn, a new family,